Welcome to another episode of the Kerfuffle. Today I got DM, Dennis Meador, and we're going to be calling him DM today. And he is the host and the founder of the Legal Podcast Network, along with many, many other things. But we're not just going to be talking about his business today. We're going to be talking about his whole life and everything that he's accomplished in his life. So without further ado, Dennis, DM, welcome to the show.
All right, my man. So I'm 48. So this is a 6-hour podcast. You said we're going to cover everything in my life.
Well, I don't know about, I'm 48 too. That would be a long podcast.
Exactly. Why don't we just cover the highlights? Let's start there. And if you want to have me back for the lowlights, we'll cover those.
That sounds like a plan. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So let's start with where I am. I live on an island in Belize. I've been here about 3 years. I am the kind of person that probably in my 20s saw the benefits of being an entrepreneur and really saw it as more of a way to craft a lifestyle that I wanted, to be able to travel, to be able to experience. I find more value in experiences than, physical things. So, I after different, things I've tried different years, now finally I was able to kind of get to what I've always kind of dreamed of being able to do, which is live outside the U.S., live on an island, live, in the Caribbean. Although right now with the sargassum, if you're paying attention to the news down here, it's not the most beautiful place in the world, but it's still a great place to be. My background, I was an Air Force kid. I think 9 states before I was 7 years old, I lived in.
Wow.
Then we traveled a lot. Even as a child, I saw all 48 contiguous United States, connected United States. And so, a lot of traveling kind of in the Midwest for some formative years. Then Ohio, Oklahoma, Austin was kind of what I call home now. 2 of my 3 kids live there. So yeah, kind of been here, been there, done this, done that, but I've always been in marketing since I was 18. It's not what I took school for. I actually went to school for theology, but I ended up in marketing and I loved it. I love the fact that I could help businesses, that I could highlight things that I was excited about and get behind them and make other people excited about them. So I've been in the marketing industry for, like I said, about 30 years, and then attorney specifically about 20 years, a little over 20 years ago, I think about 22 years. And I like working with attorneys, and people are like, what is wrong with you? Like, thinking, but there's some sort of test you should take when you make that statement. And here's why. A lot of times when you're in the selling industry, you're taught to appeal to people's emotions.
Right.
And to me, I feel that's manipulative. And when I grew up, I kind of had a perception of salespeople as professional liars. And so, I did, using these sort of tactics and things like that with attorneys. First of all, they know these tactics because they use them, they study them, they learn them, persuasion tactics, whatever words you want to use.
They're a professional mouth, basically. Yeah. They're a professional mouth.
That's a new word I'm going to call myself a professional mouth. No, probably not. People might take that wrong. So what I learned is they love logic. And so with an attorney, you could say, hey, what do you think about this? Nah, I don't really. Okay, well, have you considered this and you considered that? Oh, well, tell me more. Whereas like maybe with some other verticals, when you start talking to them and you get into that convincing mode, they get angry very quickly. Right. Or they get defensive. And so, like I said, with attorneys, that has enabled me to kind of just stay in my lane, use logic, and not make false rapport and all that other stuff. It's just like, hey, I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to tell you what I do, how it helps you. If you like it, let's work together. If not, see you later. And attorneys have always appreciated that approach versus other approaches that you can take in the sales industry.
So you've worked with attorneys all around the world, or just mainly in the United States?
Just the U.S. You go into other countries and there's a couple issues. First of all, languages, but most other like major English-speaking, Australia, England, its marketing is about 50 years behind where we are as far as mind frame. And so, it's very tough versus here, they understand. There's like, I don't know, 3 million attorneys. There's like 400,000 law firms in the United States. So you take 400,000 law firms for how much business? You have to be hyper competitive. It's a hyper competitive industry.
So now, where is your sweet spot when it comes to working with like, if I have a law firm, or I know somebody that has a law firm and I want to refer you or use you myself, where's kind of like your sweet spot for all this?
Honestly, anybody whose differentiating factor is their particular skill set or knowledge set. What we do is we use authoritative positioning to help our clients. And so authoritative positioning is different than thought leadership. Thought leadership emanates from me outwards. Authoritative positioning pays attention to who I want to come to me. And when they come to me, I want to make sure they view me as an authority. So I create a client journey to me through podcasting, through social media, through content on my website, through consultations, through webinars, whatever it is, where when they come to me, they're not coming to me saying, yeah, you're like the 8th attorney I've called. Just tell me your rates and I'll see if I hire you. They're calling saying things like, and I listened to your podcast. I watched some of your videos. I really feel like you could help me. What is it going to cost me to be able to work with you? And that's totally different. Although it's at its core the same question, it's a totally different question.
Right. Yeah. It's because, there's a lot of bad marketers out there. I know I've run into them with my business as well. As, a lot of these guys or girls that go out and they start a marketing business or try to get into a genre, let's just say, and, you spend thousands of dollars with no result. And a lot of times with marketing, it's more about getting your brand and your name out there, but people still expect results. And, when you're finding people that are not accomplishing that task, it makes it a little bit difficult to overcome people's fears of working with that type of, type of career field.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes. And here's what I would say, when attorneys say that to me, I love to use this illustration. I say, listen, first of all, an industry being called dishonest, let's be honest and say, we probably have some kinship and some similar feelings about what people have said about us. But beyond that, like when me and my brother, we got divorced about a year apart from each other. My brother got divorced first. We make about the same amount of money. We lived in different states, but we make about the same amount of money. And he got a divorce and he got a high powered, I think he spent like 25, 30 grand on his attorney, quite a bit of money in my opinion for, a process that shouldn't have taken that much money. But by the end of it, even though he paid 25 grand more than that to have a lawyer, by the end of it, he was living on our uncle's couch, hand to mouth, making well over 200 grand a year. Right? Because of just all this stuff. And I was just like, wow, okay. So when I got a divorce a year later, do you think I said, you know what? All lawyers they just steal from you. Look at my brother. I mean, no, I just didn't go to that lawyer.
Right.
And so there's bad actors in every field. Roofers. I mean, how many ripoff things that we heard about people doing with being a roofer? But there's great roofers out there too. So I think sometimes we use our own personal experiences as the rule of thumb. And when you look at the percentage, I would say a good percentage of the marketers out there, and I don't know the numbers, but let's just say 75, 80, maybe even 90%, I think we have the right intentions at heart. Some people can't deliver because of their lack of skill. Maybe it wasn't intention, it was just ability to deliver. Some people don't deliver because they are ripping you off. They get your money and they run. Some of them, it's because of the client and the relationship and the dynamic. Because like for us, what I tell my clients is, listen, if you're hiring a vendor that you pay to tell what to do, that's not us. We're a partner that is going to co-invest time to help your practice be successful. So if you don't see us as a partner that you work with to help accomplish this, and it's just somebody you throw money at and say, do this for me, we're probably not a fit to work with each other.
Yeah. And with attorneys, the interesting thing is, and I don't know a lot of other professions, maybe the medical field might fall into this a little bit, but there are limited I don't want to say limited, I'll say regulated onto how they're allowed to market in most states. A lot of times they have to, if they want to do like a print ad, or a television commercial, they have to get it approved by that state's bar. I've run into that bunch. So my brother's an attorney, and he tells me all the time, like, I have to kind of watch what I say and how I put it out there, because I can get in trouble. I can get a bar complaint. I can lose my license. It depends on what it is. Do you help the attorneys overcome that? Those issues with the
Well,
bar and stuff?
yes, we're well aware of the different bar needs. Digital's kind of flipped a lot of that on its head. It's almost still like the bar will like take your license for a bad newspaper ad, but you could have a website with like lies and slander and whatever else. Yeah, I've won $50 billion in cases. I've never lost a PI case. No injury that I've ever helped has gotten less than $10 million. And like, you know what I mean? So digital is a little behind in a lot of states. But what I've really found is most bars are either forgiveness or permission. There's very few permission states. And if they're a permission state, then they have to create a mechanism where an email address or whatever it is that they can get it back to you in a certain amount of time. And so what we'll do is we'll just package the content, send it over to the bar if that's what's required. If it's a permission state, send it over to the bar, they approve it, the client looks at it, great, and then we send it out.
So what state do you think has the hardest bar to work with, in your opinion?
I could just say off the top of my head, the main state that I know is more of a permission than forgiveness, primarily more than most, is Texas, which is surprising because they're so they're so known for kind of being more free market minded as a state, and if you ask some people, as their own country, but it's like Texas is definitely like, from what I've seen, put their foot down. I'll be honest with you. I'm pretty far removed from that day-to-day like stuff because I have people on my team that pay more attention to that. You only have so much brain space to be able to do things. And so, but I know from my personal experience, just in working with attorneys for over 20 years, it's typically been Texas. That's the only one that I've really seen much issues with.
Yeah, I know before the show, and you just brought it up, but that was actually the next question I had to ask for you. Before the show, you were saying that you have quite a big team that you can help people out with, and your people are world based,
Mhm.
all over the place. So how many people do you have working for you?
Once I finished my hires this week, because we're actually just now getting ready for the first time in a year and a half to really start focusing on sales, I built out the processes. But once we finish the hires this week, we should be around 50-ish.
Oh, wow. 50 people. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, and then you have actually people that build out your systems, and you have people that do every little aspect of everything you do. You just you're the manager, you're the boss.
Yeah. I have 3 of my 5 directors in place for production. So I have a production director, and she's amazing. She does a great job. Her background, she's like worked with like Spotify. She did a podcast. She was the producer for a podcast for Stephen King. So just things like that where I get somebody and they just run the whole department. I just give them ownership, and I'm like, what do you need to make? How do we need to make this work? And then I just empower them to do the best job with a layer of accountability and reporting to me. And I found in my 30 years of being in leadership and business ownership, what I found is when you empower people with a layer of accountability, you'll lose people that would have done well with more structure, but you'll keep people that care.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather have people that have an investment emotionally, intellectually in what we're doing than somebody who's just like, I am a robot, just tell me what to do. Oh, that is not in the SOPs. I do not know what to do now today. I will just sit here and watch TV at home, working remotely until they tell me what to do. Like, come on, but that happens. Trust me, it happens.
So, and before the show, you were saying too that, like, obviously this isn't your first business, and you've helped other people scale their business. You've helped sell businesses. You've helped grow businesses, and a lot of our fans love to hear these type of stories about people that grow businesses to XYZ. Maybe help people exit their business. Maybe help people, bring in some sort of, capital to help their business. Like, what's your big success story? Like, if you had to choose like one of your big success stories, what would that be with this?
Well, I feel like I'm at the start of my biggest one now, but we'll leave that to the side. I would say probably, and I don't know if it's a curse or a blessing when you have a lot of success early, but I did. I had a business when I was 14. I basically just was like, I had like the lawn mowing and all that stuff, but I didn't do it. Younger guys did it, and then I got the jobs and collected the money, gave them half, kept half, and then that was what I did. But when I was, I think about 20, 21, somewhere in there, I had a friend of mine who had started a company, and he's like, dude, I want you to come in, start. So it was me and him. We started in like a 6x6 room. We were still selling paper back then. It was early 2000. It was like I said, 2001. Um, and into 2002, 2003. But so I came in, me and him, 6x6 room. It was basically a closet in another office. It felt like, right? It was just like we had two small desks, and I'd be like, all right, I'm going to call. And I'd hang up and be like, all right, I'm going to call, and then hang up. Within a year, we were doing $5 million with a net 25% profit margin, about 35 people working with a 7,000, 8,000 square foot office. I had come up with a concept called a just in case emergency guide. It was a 6x9 magnet. It had in the middle, it had poison control, animal control, on call nurse at the hospital, emergency power outage number, anything that you would need at a moment's notice. So what we would do is we would call up like the local community liaison police officer, community liaison in the fire department, maybe the American Red Cross, and we say, hey, we're making like 5,000 of these magnets. They have these very important numbers. We are going to have ads on them, but we won't have bars, strip clubs, anything that would be offensive or could be offensive to some people in your community. So we call a mortgage broker, be like, listen, hey, we got this magnet that the police department's going to hand out at community activities, $500. You'll be the only mortgage agent. And so that's what we did. We did all in-house. We started first without a house, and then we hired and grew an in-house production. And I created a whole like kind of tiered sales system to where you could literally work there for years and feel like you're still progressing in your career. Because one thing that I had noticed is that in sales, the only progression that most people feel in sales is bigger paychecks, but that eventually that is not enough of a accomplishment for people. And I think that that's one of the main reasons why at 26, 27, 28, a lot of people burn out of sales careers because they feel like they're stuck. And you're like, yeah, but you're making 120 grand. And they're like, yeah, but like if you go up like 10 levels to the CEO, he's making $2 million a year. Oh, are you going to get there? Well, no, but I could be middle management and make the same I'm making and work twice as hard. Okay, well, that'd be middle management. But that's just my personal opinion.
Now, where did you find most of your salespeople when you were doing this? You know, like, did you go to colleges? Did you hire on personality? Did you hire on skill set?
What I look for is quick witted, well spoken, or at least, you know, quick in their speech, aggressive, and determined. So there are certain things I look for. For example, if I see collections in their background, especially if they've done it more than like 2 months, right? But they've actually been a collections person, then they have that thick skin that can get past and keep going. So I look for like collections and parallel things, parallel sales, archetypes, kind of harder because we have a somewhat hard archetype of who we sell to. When you call an attorney, more often than not, it's not, oh, hey, thanks for calling me. It's more like, who are you? What do you want? So you have to be pretty thick skinned to do well in what we do. So, I would look for sort of those, indicators in their background and then personality traits as I'm talking to them. And, it always changes. I mean, I'll tell you right now, LinkedIn is the only place I'm getting my people from as we've been growing because I could throw $500 in there, have 150 qualified applicants, just hit them on LinkedIn right away, set them on the calendar if I think that they qualify, and then boom, I can fill my day. I ran an ad last Friday. I had like 30 interviews this week.
Wow. Wow. And do you find that you hear a lot on TV that the younger generation isn't as driven? Do you find that be the truth when you're hiring people, or do you think that they're just as driven as like, you and me are both Gen X? So, we grew up, latchkey kids, we know what it's like to work, even though we were called
Right.
slackers. Do you find that the younger generation is just as eager to work, or do you have to work with them a little bit?
I do have, I think, three, four, maybe five Gen Zs. And here's what I've found, and this is just my formula. I'm not saying that it's the formula, but it's my formula. When I hire Gen Z, I don't hire them for a position, I hire them for a department. And I hire them in a department that I know that they want to work in. Because Gen Z is kind of like this. I don't like this. It's a waste of my time. And they'll just leave. Like, they've been told since they were, however old, you're unique. There's something, you can do anything, whatever you want to do. Don't settle. Don't buy into the system. Wait, our children are just products of what we taught them. And then we're getting mad at them for being what we taught them to be. We're
Right.
mad that they're on their screens all the time, but we hand them freaking iPads the whole time they were growing up, the second that they went, mom or dad or whatever.
Yep.
So, what I have found with Gen Z is I hire them into a department and then I do what I call sandboxing. I let them try all the different things in that department. And then I look and I see what one did they really excel at? What one did they kind of excel at? And I sit down with them and I say, okay, this is what I'm seeing, but is there anything else? And sometimes they're like, no, that's exactly what I want. I want it. And then I just do that and they take ownership. Like, we brought in, she's now our main copywriter, but we brought her in as like kind of a backup content copywriter. Now, she is a second generation copywriter. She went to school for it. This is what she does. She does a very good job. But when she came in, I was just like, let's sandbox you. Okay. We have like these daily emails that we send. Well, we have this list of like people that for 3 or 4 months never opened our email one time. So we just kept that. We siphon off that list if they didn't listen to us for or if they didn't open up their email for 3, 4 months at a time. And so we built a database off of that. And I just said, you have no pressure whatsoever. If you can get one person out of this list and a couple of email runs, you've done more than our company could do. And so now she has this list and we're getting clients out of it consistently because she's writing differently. She's taking a different approach and she takes full ownership and excitement about that project. The other thing I do is, especially with being a growing company, is I'm constantly looking to shift tasks. So we believe in AI, outsourcing, and then staying within your strength. So if I find somebody that is a copywriter and I'm like, I look at her report and she's like, spent 6 hours making a spreadsheet today. I'm going to email her the next day and say, why didn't this VA take care of that for you? Oh, yeah, I forgot I could have them do that for me. Yes, I don't want you making spreadsheets. I want you being the copywriter that converts. That's your job. And what I tell my team is if everybody on the team is only doing the thing that only they can do, the team will be wildly successful. And so if you have to put a task on somebody that's younger or whatever that isn't in their wheelhouse, make sure they understand that it's just temporary. And the other thing is I always pay attention to I use Time Doctor. And once I can see they're over 80% capacity of like working, they're over that 80%. I go and I offload some smaller tasks and hire maybe another VA to kind of take care of these lower end tasks because their skill level is going up.
Right, right. So now, and I heard you mention AI here for a little bit. How is AI coming into play in your industry? I mean, it's everywhere. Like, what are you doing? What are you using? And how's it coming into play?
Any way possible. The biggest thing that we're doing is our podcast that is going to start next month is called BAM, Building Authority Through Media. And it is a 80s and 90s superhero cartoon style podcast with me, I'm Bam Man. And I every week team up with another superhero. And our first series is Journey Through the Land of LinkedIn. The first week I meet up with Misfit and we conquer content monsters, chasing cloud or just lacking confidence. Another week, we talk about the bio and biohazardous bios with Vivica Hess. And so we just go week by week and just kind of break it down and we're going thing by thing. But we actually have produced a physical cartoon. So when you watch it, it's like a talking cartoon figure, and then we use like really cool B-roll because it's not quite there yet. But so that's one way we're using it. Doing that. We're also building a couple of streaming networks, and those are going to be AI driven for the content. So they're going to be downloadable on Amazon, and this is all content for lawyers or people who need a lawyer. The other area that we use AI in is, workflows for ad copy, workflows for client services, workflows for data. It's a lot of workflow stuff. That's really, and you got to be careful because a lot of people are calling automations, which have been around for 20 years, as AI. And if you don't know enough, you're just like, oh, I just got this AI. And it's like, that's just an automation. It's been around for 8 years. But once you start, and like my team, I have talking about Gen Z, young man that started on my team. And this is literally how he got a job. Him and his mom used to own the cafe right across the street from me. And he'd always be sitting in there. He's like 21, just typing on his computer. And I'm one of those people, I just talk to whoever. I'll sit down with you. I'll chat with you. Old, young, black, white, poor, rich. I don't care. People are people. We all have stories. So I sat down with him one day, and he was like, I was like, so what are you looking to do? Because his mom had kind of been like, hey, like, you could talk to him a little bit. He's just kind of aimless right now. And so I was like, well, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, kind of want to work online like how you do, where you can travel and be remote, and how, I'd love to be able to be that way. And I was like, okay. I was like, what are you doing to learn AI? And he's like, well, nothing. And I go, learn some AI, man. I said, there's nothing that will hurt you if you start taking some AI courses. He's like, okay. And I'm like, a month and a half, 2 months later, I don't think much about it, of the conversation. And he goes, hey, because it's kind of a quiet kid, he's like, hey, started taking some classes and, learning that AI stuff. Thanks for that. I was like, oh, how many classes have you taken? And he's like, I don't know, about 10 or 12 now. And I was like, you want a job? He's like, yeah. So he's the one that is basically going in, and he just goes and either does automations or AI, and that's his job in our company. And then now we can possibly, once we really get like we experiment in-house, we can now offer maybe a higher end style of podcast. Because I firmly believe that podcasts need to be not just good content, or as I like to say, meat on the table, but you got to have some seasoning or some good, some good production value, and you've got to have entertainment value. If you don't have those three things, and you can see that in every form of media, radio, television, in the beginning, it was just something. And then it was something better. And then it was something good. And now it's something great when you look at production. And, and not every show is great, but I think you see the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's some of the wild ideas you pitch to attorneys when you're talking to them about maybe doing a podcast or a show? I mean, you talked about an animated series for yourself, but like, what are some of the other crazy ideas? Like, again, if I'm an attorney and I say, hey, what can DM do for me that's different than Joe Schmo down the street that can get me the attention that I need?
I think that, for me, it's most attorneys don't want something like that. I'll just flat out be honest with you. What they want is to be seen as an authority. So like me, I can cut through the clutter and they can be like, wow, he's a clever marketer. But no one goes, wow, he's a, like, we don't really respect that, like attorney who's like, I am the justice deliverer of, you know what I mean? Like, now maybe you could take a PI attorney and do like a accident case, and they, those are the things that we could play with. But most attorneys right now, they just want to differentiate themselves by creating that authoritative positioning. So right now it's about feeding the language learning models, the chat GPTs and all of that, because you can get cited because now we're providing query-based content, which is really what the GPT and the LLM models want, the language learning models want. They want a question and an answer. Well, guess what we're doing for 21 minutes for our clients is 7 to 10 questions. And that's we're building authority building podcasts. We're not trying to be entertaining. We're trying to show them. This is what somebody said to me earlier today. I don't care about the bedside manner of my neurosurgeon. I don't need him to have a good bedside manner. And yes, it's great if the attorney is personable. It's great if they have a sense of humor. It's great if they're entertaining. It's great if they know how to emote and do a good job. But at the end of the day, if you hire somebody because they're entertaining and not a great lawyer, you're just as foolish as the person who hired somebody that was cheaper.
Right, right. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, there's an attorney that's on YouTube, Texas Law Dog or something
Yeah,
like that,
I know you're
and
talking about.
he's out there, and a lot of attorneys bust his chops. But I wonder, like, you often wonder, how does that guy make out? I mean, obviously he's doing something because he continues to make those videos. So um,
Well,
it would be
yes, and I'm
hard.
sure that he gets a very specific archetype of client. So you know what I mean? Like some of my clients, they're like FCC border compliance, and how to take your business and turn it into a franchise. So the people that are going to consume that content are not people who want to see how to make a franchise in a cartoon. They
Right.
want to see that, hey, this guy knows how to build this, scale it, make sure it's legal, make sure, I don't end up like horror stories I read about when I was researching doing this. This person can really help me. That is what our podcasts are about. So that somebody walks away going, that is who I want my lawyer to be. And no one goes, wow, that was a cool, comic book podcast. That's who I want my lawyer to be. They want that authoritative positioning.
Right. So you are in Belize right now, but we were talking a little bit before the show, and you plan to travel around the world a little bit. And we'll step into a little bit of the personal stuff here.
Sure.
Where do you where do you plan to travel, and what do you have going on?
I mean, I honestly, I'll tell you a little funny story. So, my wife, she's in a position where, I told her, I was like, your job is to be happy. Your job is to enjoy life. Plus, we live in a country where she can't, we're immigrants. We can't just go out and get a job where we are, So, and she's a school teacher by trade. So one day, she was a little restless, and I was like, why don't you plan a couple trips or something? She loves doing planning trips. We have a trip coming up. We just went to Thailand and Bali earlier this year. We have, I lived in Romania when I was younger and traveled a lot over Europe. We're getting ready to go to, I think, 7 countries: Germany, France, Belgium, Switzerland, Slovenia, Hungary. If I'm missing one, I'm sorry. Austria, it's another one. But so she comes back to me and she's like, "You're going to be mad at me." And I was like, "Why would I be mad at you about planning a trip?" She's like, "I didn't plan a trip. I planned 18 years from the time our daughter is, we're hoping to have a daughter. We're trying to have a child." She's like, "From the time our daughter is able to travel until she goes off to college." And again, that's just, hopeful projection. I planned the next 18 years of trips. And I don't mean just like loosely, like month, by travel, by possibly using, this Airbnb, like everything. So I said that to say this. One of the things that me and my wife have planned is sometime over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to be like homeless because we're just going to live Airbnb to Airbnb, month to month to month, country by country by country, and just experience the world. The only thing I need is a good internet connection, and I can run my business from anywhere in the world. So we've been a lot of places, and literally I have an 18-year trip planned starting hopefully sometime in the next 3 years. But I've been to several countries and contiguous US and all of that as well.
So what's your favorite?
So far, I really liked Thailand. And not just for the big experiences. We went to elephant sanctuaries and things like that. But that part of the world, and especially like Thailand and Bali, even as well, I love the way that people don't like, we talk about rugged individualism in the US. And listen, I think it's served us well because we're hard charging people like stereotypically, especially in business, things like that.
Yep.
But a lot of other countries think of the collective above the individual. And so the way they interact in some ways is very uncomfortable for us because we need our 3 foot bubble. But when you're walking around in Thailand and it's crowded, you're just like, oh, sorry. Oh,
Right.
you know. So, but I love the culture. I love the diversity of opportunities there. I really like the people. And honestly, it is so cheap. Like literally, we'd go eat at Thai restaurants. We'd spend like $4 or $5 for the two of us with a 20% tip. I mean,
Wow.
it's ridiculous. If I told you how much we spent, and I'm not going to put it out there, but my wife told a friend of ours what we spent on our Thailand Bali trip, and they were like, "That's it? You guys travel for that much?" She's like, "Yeah, I do a lot of planning and da 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 da." And I mean, my wife watches the plane, the prices on planes, and okay, it's time to buy, and it's like she does it all because she knows like the more I make our money stretch, the more we get to do because I give her a certain budget. I'll be like, this is the budget we have for this trip. And sometimes I'll give her a budget and what she asked for 2 weeks, I'll give her the money for it and she can plan out 4 or 6 weeks. That's actually what happened with this trip. It was supposed to be kind of a short thing where we were going to go to the US and maybe Vermont. We've been on an island for 3 years, but we both grew up in the Midwest. And she's like, I miss wearing a beanie. I miss wearing jeans. I miss hot cocoa. I miss, campfires. Like I miss it. And I was like, well, let's go up and go in a cabin in the woods or something. By the time she did all the logistics of 2 weeks in Vermont, it was cheaper to go 3 weeks in Germany. And then I had something happen and I was like, hey, I'm going to give you a little bit. You did a lot with that trip. Here's a little bit more. She took that little bit and stretched it out into a 6-week trip. Well, actually, she stretched it out to an 8-week trip. And then she came and asked me for more money. And I said, babe, you had your budget. And then she took it back down to 6 weeks.
But it always pays. I mean, like it pays to have a good woman in your life, to have that background, because I know that, I couldn't make it without my better half. We joke a lot, but it's nice to have them around.
I think here's my opinion. I think that both people in every relationship should think they're the spoiled one.
Yeah, I can see that.
Fair enough. You know what I mean? You should be like, my wife spoils me, man. I am so fortunate. And then she should be like, my husband takes, he spoils me. That's the dynamic you want. And so that's what I strive for.
Yeah, she definitely spoils me. I will say that more than any other woman ever has.
Probably why you married her.
So now you're on multiple platforms with your shows and stuff like that. But if I'm an attorney, what platforms do you recommend when you're doing your podcast that the attorneys go on? And there's so many different platforms.
Oh yeah.
Is it industry specific, or how do you determine that?
I mean, I think the only thing I really look for nowadays is just like, is this a political platform or is this a real agnostic platform? Because a lot of the like different streaming and things like that, when you get down to them, they started in the last few years because people didn't feel like their point of view is being, properly heard or whatever. So, but here's what I tell attorneys: like, listen, you need YouTube for a couple of reasons. Get good video, because now you can build shorts and reels and you can start stacking your content. And you can take, like with us, we take 30 minutes. That's one show a month. With that 30 minutes, we can then take and we create a podcast. We put it on 25 outlets, video and audio. Then we create 30 pieces of content from it, 10 reels, 10 audiograms, and 10 like static ads. And then we place them, so about 300 placements a month for just that time. But if we didn't shoot video, that would be half of our output. And so I think video, if you're going to talk and you're going to take time, get it on video, because it can be referred back to, it can be repurposed, it's evergreen. So, and YouTube is the big video driver. People can complain about the algorithms and da 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 da. I've been in this game since the beginning, and everyone's complained about the algorithms since the beginning. The only time that they love the outlets are when the outlets are new or aggressive with a new product, and they give them a bunch of free publicity. And then they come back and they say, "Oh, Facebook sucks now. I'm going off Facebook." And then they go over to Instagram, and Instagram sucks now. Now I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn sucks now. Now I'm on Blue Sky. It's just like, don't jump from place to place to place. If the algorithm changes somewhere, keep your presence consistent. And then if you feel like you need to find another outlet or platform, use that. But don't jump from place to place to place, because some of these, there's a big cumulative effect over time. some of these you don't want to start over if their algorithm changes back in favor of people. LinkedIn was great. And then it was just junky jobs for a long time. And, I've had LinkedIn 17 years and I never used it until a year ago. And now I went from like 1,500 followers to like 4,000 followers, and we built a lot of important relationships through it and done a lot of stuff through it. But I hear people on LinkedIn all the time, the algorithm's changing. I'm going to go over here now. Hey, there's this. And it's just like, guys, don't jump off to something else. Establish something else. But I would start with, for video, absolutely. If you can only do one, do YouTube. I read that, and I need to double check the stat because it was kind of like in a story, but like the biggest deliverer of podcasts now is streaming video on YouTube.
Really? I didn't know that. I would have figured it would have been like an Amazon or a Spotify or Apple or something like that.
Well, Apple owns 60% of the audio market, almost 70%. And then Spotify owns like another 10, 20%. And everything else is split between those two. I think like 5, maybe 10% is split on all the other networks. But when we're talking about just watching podcasts, right now, podcasts are consumed now more than anywhere else on Google. They're actually launching a Google podcast platform. I've been reading about it. They're setting themselves up to become the next video podcasting platform.
Oh, wow, I didn't even know that. So it would be in direct competition of YouTube, or would it migrate over from?
It would be it would be a migration. It would kind of be like a segmentation to basically make it where it's like, and I don't know, I haven't seen the UI, the user interface, but my guess would be it's video forward, but audio available, and more interacting with these things as podcasts instead of shows. And so I think they're just trying to change the experience and the connectedness with them. And I'm really excited about it. And here's the biggest reason why. It's very hard to find a new podcast in Apple, in Spotify, in like, you know what I mean? Like, just put it in the subject and it's just kind of, it's just the searching and the, all of that. It's just not there for audio and podcasts. Whereas with YouTube, they know how to just intertwine everything together. So that's, I think it'll help make podcasts more available to people, and put them in front of people more, because, there's no like podcast scrolling, right? You have to go through 3 or 4 steps. So you can't just be like, let me listen to a couple minutes of this podcast. Okay. Okay. You know what? Yeah, let's keep them. Actually, I think I'm inventing something right now. So it's like Tinder for podcasts, right?
That's an idea. Wow.
Hey, you cut this out. Me and you got it. Because that's what I need, is another business venture in my life. But no, I think it's going to make a pretty big splash, or at the very least, it has the opportunity to make a huge splash and really change the game.
And getting that on the ground running would be good too, because I don't have television at home. I stream everything. So I have Prime. I have the YouTube. I probably watch YouTube more than anything else at home. And every time I go on, it is now mostly podcasts. I mean, there are some, documentaries and stuff that I enjoy watching, but everything seems to be podcast. And it seems to be that podcasting has, got to the point where it's exploded to the, it gives the little man the voice. And regardless of, I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about if you're a woodworker or an attorney or whatever. And it allows them to actually make money too with live stream, where you can do like super chat or what have you. Do you ever work with that stuff?
We really don't, because monetization for our clients is about getting clients for them. So, I kind of liken it to this. We can make all this effort. We can maybe make you get 2 million views on, whatever YouTube, and then you're going to get a check for like $3,000, because it's about 1,500 cost per, CPM for them. And it's $1 to $2,000 depending on your demographic. So you get 2 million hits, you get $3,000. But if you're an attorney, what if you only got 50 people to watch your show, but out of that, like 10 call you and 6 hire you, and you make $10,000 off of each? Would you rather get $3,000 and have 2 million views, or would you rather have 50 million views or 50 views and $60,000?
Right.
So
makes sense.
That's not something, we're not trying to get $3 for our attorneys. we're trying to get 3 clients.
So the goal is actually to utilize it as throwing monetization. I mean, if it happens, it happens. But if throwing monetization out the window is more promoting your service than the actual becoming like a guru and becoming an influencer type of thing.
Well, there's 5 ways to monetize your podcast. So, and you're talking about like number 1 is what we call traditional monetization, whether it be like YouTube sending us checks for views or whoever, whatever CPM. So there's that approach. Then there's sponsorship type approaches where you directly go out and get your sponsors. But here's where most people stop. Then you've got what I call like prospecting podcasts, where you actually have your potential client come on. And instead of saying, hey, would you like to see a demonstration? You're just like, hey, I got this podcast about this. I think you'd be a great guest. I'd like to have you come on and talk. And so that's a third strategy of monetization, is basically having your prospects on. The fourth one is having referral partners on. So essentially just, bringing in people that aren't going to be your client, but their clients are your clients, and they're going to refer people to you. And then the fifth one would be directly then using podcasts to bring people in as a client. So, there's so many ways to use podcasting to your advantage. It's not just hoping Google sends you a check.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, podcasting has definitely exploded, and there's a lot of bad podcasts out there, but, every time I listen to something that's educating and enlightening me, and I listen to a lot of history podcasts. I love history podcasts, History on Fire, things like that. I mean, I absolutely love them. But with podcasting exploding, where do you see the future of podcasting going outside of the potential Google Google Podcasts?
YouTube, yeah. I think that I think I alluded to this earlier, but every single media outlet historically has had the same sort of arc, if you will. In the beginning, content is enough. Then when you get a lot of content, now you have to have better production value, because that becomes your differentiating value. Now, if you've got good content with good production value, there needs to be entertainment value to set yourself apart. And we are in between good content and good production. We're sitting right in that middle spot where the standard, you could still have poor production and a good podcast, but it will come to where you can't have poor production and be considered a good podcast. And then once that becomes the standard, then you'll start seeing people go, okay, well, they look as sharp as I do, and they have good editing, and they have, the bells and whistles that make it look good. So what do I do now? Well, now I've got to be more entertaining. How do I provide entertainment value? And that's where I'm trying to be 2 steps ahead and basically playing with different ways, seeing who responds. Because to me, I thought, if I create an 80s and 90s podcast or cartoon look, then they're either going to be at the age right now where they watched it, which is like my age, so they're in their 40s, or their kids watched it. They'll be in their 60s. So that's who I want to appeal to. So let me see, by doing this and kind of reminiscing people's childhood without even saying, hey, this is reminiscent of your childhood, will I reach my target market by having an entertainment value that is specifically designed? It's another layer to reach your target market. So if for example, like if you know that your target market, 90% of them play golf, then you do a business show with golf as the backdrop. And I kind of liken it to, and I want to do this sometime because I think it's so funny. You've seen these like YouTube videos where it's usually a woman. I'm not going to say it's always a woman. I haven't seen any men doing this yet, but they're sitting there and they're putting on their makeup and their hair's up, and they're doing
like ASMR type of stuff.
Not ASMR. It's they're talking. They're telling you a story. So I went to a store the other day, and I told my friend, it's kind of, have you seen these videos? They're like doing their makeup and their hair while they're telling a story.
No, I haven't seen it, but now I'm visualizing it in my head.
Oh man, I want to make one. I want to be just like, but I want it to be like different, like a guy. I don't know, just like get in, just like floss my teeth. So I was telling somebody the other day just like, we'll see.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So outside of the normal platforms, earlier you said that there were some that you try to steer people away from, or that might be political or not, or I don't want to say political, but maybe not the main ones. What platforms do you try to steer your podcasters away from to say maybe it might be a waste?
Well, one thing, I am outlet agnostic. I don't think anything it would be a waste anywhere, because there's every audience has of any decent size. Every audience is going to have somebody that fits your client profile in it. If there's any size, if there's 1 million that use that, whatever it is, or 100 million or whatever, it's going to have somebody in there. So I'm very outlet agnostic. However, when an outlet says, we stand for this political stance, then you either need to be willing to say, yep, me too, or you need to say, you need to say, yeah, that I really can't associate myself with that. Like I wouldn't put my clients' videos on Pornhub.
Right.
I mean, technically, it's a video service.
Right.
So
right.
that's my point. And so I think, because we're turnkey. So for our clients, we're not saying, hey, do this, do this, do this. We're doing everything for them. We're putting them on all the platforms. We're doing all the marketing. We're, making the marketing, distributing it. We're connecting the outlets that they don't have. We're building YouTube channels. We're literally building their whole ecosystem, which the vast majority of small businesses don't have a marketing ecosystem. They have what they call marketing initiatives, and that comes from the way marketing used to be. I buy some newspaper ads, I run those for a while, I try them. Now I buy some yellow pages and I try that for a while. Now I try some local TV and I try. But really what you should be seeking to do is I put in a YouTube show or a podcast. Now I'm doing my SEO. Now I've got a great content marketing strategy and social media strategy. Now I've got a great sort of educational marketing strategy. And with this entire ecosystem, we bring in people. It's like, you don't keep a frog alive in a glass cage. You got to make a terrarium for it.
Right.
And yet everyone sticks a frog in the middle of a glass cage and wonders why it freaking dies. Build a terrarium and it'll be fine.
So DM, where can people find you online if they want to go look you up, or reach out to you, or make a connection like we did, or potential to talk to you about business?
If it's me directly, probably the best way. I have a site that it's not up yet, but I think by the time this goes out, it will be, because it'll be any day now. But it's DM, letter D, letter M, on demand.expert. And it's also on the screen here, but dmondemand.expert, it basically takes the three aspects of who I am: podcast guest, podcast host, and podcast network founder. And it just kind of takes those three and it lets you explore those. And then if you want to connect with me for one of those, there's information on there. It'll go to the proper person on my team, and then they'll work things out. If you want a more direct connection with me, where you can kind of, chat with me and kind of see more like, okay, how can, hey, I got a question, or hey, I watched or saw this from you, a question for you. LinkedIn. I mean, that is where professional conversations are happening, period, exclamation point. If you are a business to business provider in any way and you are not actively spending time on LinkedIn, you are doing a disservice to yourself. Now, the trick with LinkedIn is to find out who are LinkedIn people and who are business people. Because there's some people there just because it's LinkedIn, they've got a lot going on and they like to think and talk about business, but they're never really moving the needle and doing things. But once you start realizing this person's moving the needle, doing things, somebody that I want to be associated with, have as a client, whatever it is, it's really easy to spot them and build relationships with them. And it's just kind of this like open forum. And not everybody is going to let you in the door. Listen, I'm like everybody. I've been selling since I was 14. I still get my feelings hurt when I send somebody a LinkedIn request and they don't, and I'm just like, it's been 4 days. Then I'll look at my bio and I'll be like, well, maybe it's my picture. Maybe I'm too salesy. Like, I mean, listen, maybe I'm the weird outlier, but anything social can sting. But still, that's a great place. So link up with me there. We can talk. If I can be of help to you, be happy to be of help to you. If my team could be of help to you, that's where I can add the greatest value. There's one of me, there's almost 50 of them. So I don't know about you, but I'd probably die if I got beat up by 50 people, but one person I'd have a chance. So you do the math.
And then, DM, last question, and I always ask everybody this at the end of the show. If you could reach out and speak to an attorney and give them what would be the benefit of at least speaking to you. I mean, we went over this a lot in the show, but like, what would be your one thing that you would say to them that would be the benefit to give you an opportunity to see if you can help them out?
I think the biggest benefit that they have in working with me is I come from a place of experience in working with them, not demographically. They just made the most sense to me. So I started my company because lawyers spend X amount of dollars per year on marketing and they do this percentage of their budget. No, like I've literally worked with attorneys for over 2 decades. So when you come to me, like most attorneys, like in a conversation, I could be like, so you're in this market doing this, you're making about what, this much per hour, and you're doing about, oh, you did this many cases. Okay. So you're doing about this much per year. And okay, well, like I can, like, I'm more of a consultant when I'm talking to clients than I am a salesperson because I've scaled my own companies. I've worked in companies. I've helped with so many different things and built my own companies and other people's companies. I can't help but see and have those things. And so experience is where it matters. And not only am I experienced, I didn't learn this 22 years ago and stop learning and then rest on my laurels. I mean, I literally do this non-stop. You can ask my wife. We have what we call date night, and it just means we turn off our freaking cell phones for the night and actually make sure we spend the whole evening with each other. So
Yep.
that's what I offer. Somebody who's done it a while but isn't behind.
So to all those out there listening to the Kerfuffle podcast, reach out to DM. He'll be glad to help you out if you're in the legal profession or related to the legal profession and you would like to talk to him about doing a podcast. We're going to leave the links below on our description as well as we'll put them on our website. And if you have an issue or you can't get a hold of DM for some reason, reach out to us and we'll help you get a hold of him and, see what he can do for you. But make sure to take opportunity to follow us on all our platforms. We're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on Spotify, we're on Amazon, we're on Apple iTunes. You name it, we're probably there. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And DM, we'd like to thank you for being on the show today.
Absolutely, my man. It was my pleasure.
And until next time, have fun storming the castle.